big night tonight for followers of football. You know that. It's a championship, European.
there's today. That's
UEFA championship. So very soon the kickoff will be about to start. So we're somehow on the way of a big game: Chelsea versus Manchester City.
It's a very big game today. It will be interesting to see who wins it. You know, I was saying to somebody in the afternoon, winning trophies is yes, still involved, but there is a big chunk of luck. Whether you're playing golf, tennis, whatever, winning has a lot to do with luck and preparation before, your mindset. And this is why I encourage people in sport to work with coaches so that your mind is, because success is mindset. All the talent in the world. But if you don't have a mindset for whether it's business or tennis, whatever it is, sport, succeed. So
yes, and let's also, George, congratulate Peter Musimani. He won the Super Cup last night. CAF Super Cup.
He's done well, Peter, huh?
Maybe we must check with him if he, over and above coaching, is he having a coach, not the coach for sports, but coach as we do, life coach like that.
You know, something I would like to share with the listeners is Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, all these top guys actually use coaches. Initially, there's a bit of resistance, but all your big successful entrepreneurs, your Jeff Bezos, etc., they have coaches. Some have even more than one coach. And if the guys who are listening, the question will be, so what does the coach do for me? Now, the coach explores with you possibilities so that you have different perspectives on the issues that you have. And that helps you to analyze.
Yeah. I've seen so many definitions of coaching, George. I have my own definition here, but maybe before we move on, we haven't checked in, George, you and I. We've chit-chatted.
We went straight into the mix.
But we haven't really checked in. I don't know what state of mind you are in, other than you sharing with me about the loss. Did you say it was a friend that passed on?
Of a colleague, a former workmate. We were friends. He lived in my neighborhood, and it's a big loss. He was a good man, and in fact, he was actually going to start doing coaching. Yeah, it was his background.
What a pity! It's really a loss. I guess we have to keep all families, friends that have lost loved ones. You know, it's a difficult times in COVID, and I see we're picking numbers a little bit, but it's not as scary as we thought. But there are still some hot spots that are being highlighted every day. So George, maybe let's check in. You want to start checking in first, or what do you check in with? I know for you and I, it feels like we have checked in, but maybe for the listeners, we will check in.
Yeah. Well, it's I always look forward to an opportunity to share with listeners on topics that add value to their lives, and I've found coaching to be something that really helps people. So my state right now is one of to anticipate what we're going to be discussing, and I'm always filled with the hope that more and more people will utilize the benefits of coaches, wherever you may be. in the world. There will be coaches there because they help you to unlock the potential that's in you. It's amazing what each one of us has inside of us. People will go to their graves with it. It doesn't come out. And working with coaches actually helps you to unlock those things and be able to add value to other people's lives. And it's as I say, it's not always you as an individual, because when you do well, there's a whole value chain of people who benefit from you. So your success influences more than just you. There's a lot of people who benefit when you succeed. And of course, when you fail, you are letting the team down. So I look at each individual as a team player in this world, uplifts other people. So the better you perform, the more people are in your value chain benefit and grow to become better people. So so hence this passion I have to talking about coaching, about improvement, self-improvement, to be the best version of yourself. So that's the mood I'm in today. So.
Yeah, good stuff. I must say, from my side, I think we have Dr. Zongelo. I'm trying to invite her onto our speakers platform. Dr. Zongelo, I've just invited you to move over to the speakers platform. If you hear me, I think very soon the system will be transitioning you. You know, I noticed that it takes a little bit while between me inviting somebody from the public platform to come over to join us on the co-host speakers platform. So if you hear me, Dr. Zongelo, you just have to have a little bit of a patience. I think the system has got its own way of delaying because it doesn't want us to invite wrong people. I don't know whether there's anybody called wrong person if they join us, George. You can't call people wrong persons, but I mean people that we didn't intend to be inviting them onto the speakers platform. Yeah, my check-in, George, is I was reflecting on, since we started, this is the third edition of our Saturday evening executive coaches network. I've actually become aware that there was a gap in us as coaches in terms of sometimes just sitting back and listening to other people's views to fill up those gaps that one wasn't aware of. Now I'm very much aware that there is always, as you said, something to learn. And learning doesn't depend on the numbers of people. You could be 4 of you, 3 of you, 2 of you. The moment you enter into conversation, you are bound to learn. So I'm also looking forward to our conversation. And I have this definition. I want you to reflect on it for me before we go on to the ICF competencies, George. I tried to define coaching in my own way, and here I say that coaching can be regarded as a development intervention in which the coach becomes the thinking partner of the client and facilitates the process of self-discovery, self-awareness, and individual capacity development to successfully deal with the growth and development challenges in personal and professional life. I'm sorry for a very long one.
That's all right. That's all right.
Welcome, Dr. Songela.
And good evening to all the coaches. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Are you back from Cape Town?
Yes, I'm back from Cape Town. I just had a week from Gauteng.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the Cape, and I did my 15 kilometers walk. So I'm revived.
That's the lucky few, huh? You and I, Sam, must take a break and go to Cape Town or somewhere to energize ourselves.
Yeah. Cape Town is always a beautiful place to visit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Songela, George has proposed that we spend some time looking at the ICF core competencies. So, and we had just started talking about. I wanted him to reflect on my definition of coaching. It's quite a long one, but we are checking in. Do you want to check in, Dr. Songela?
Yes, thank you very much again for this invitation. You know, I was excited when I joined because I wanted to hear from other coaches as well, as you just said, because we always have something to learn from the other colleagues.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm watching attentively here. If I see any of our fellow coaches logging into the public platform, I will invite them over.
Yes, I am very, very excited for that opportunity as well. How do I check in? I must.
Well, just check in with anything or your state of mind, body, spirit.
I actually wanted to actually just talk to that actually. You know, during I think it was really like it was level 5 lockdown when we were all not talking to each other. We were all so worried about losing our families, friends, close people that we know without really finding closure. We were in our own spaces, in whether you were with your family or you are on your own, depending on your situation. And what for me has always been I don't know how to call it, a moment of a spark. I don't know how to call it. Is when Upotsem just, and we hadn't actually spoken, I think, for some time. And he just called me and said, "How are you?" And you know, not that we haven't been talking to other people about how are you or whatever, but it was really about not how are you, somebody passed on, how are you, look at the numbers, how are you, and having other conversations, you know, that are other distressing news or whatever. But that how are you was a defining moment for me that really embodies the really true spirit of coaching. Because as much as we can try and define what coaching is, maybe in writing or in whatever, in books, that is written in books. But I also just think that coaching is a call. It is about who you are. So I'm sharing this, that sometimes the small things like that mean a lot to other people than what other people realize. You know, the giver will always never understand the impact that they are making to the one that is gifted. So I would just, you know, you colleagues can define coaching in that manner. I'm sorry to put you on the spot in that, but for me, that is exactly what coaching is all about. It's having that kind of relationship, of thinking about people, of reaching out when everybody else isn't, when everybody else is thinking, is influenced about the external factors, but somebody realizes that there is, I must think outside. I don't want to say, I don't know whether the box or whatever of what everybody else is thinking about.
Just to edify that, or even to amplify it, I experienced that just this past week. That I called somebody that I haven't spoken for a very long time, only to receive such inspiring developments, and it was as if I was checked to check, but I ended up actually being the one inspired when I heard what they have achieved between the times we haven't been speaking.
Yeah, and I think what the doctor is also talking about is it sounds like empathy. The place of empathy. When that's a defining thing about coaching. That every coach must be curious, must be empathetic. That's how good coaches then bring the best out of people.
Well, thanks, Mbuzi, for sharing with us.
And this is something I don't have. That is what is so interesting. As I was moving from mentorship, corporate leadership, driving deliverables, all what you do, you really like thinking about the targets. You would have that kind of empathy, but not that much, because you just know how the pressures of the corporate environment. So this is one of for me, the learnings that I have to do, and the kind of person that I am. I've been like this person who's always like, okay, deliverables. So to have to learn from people like Kuntate Sam and the other coaches, that coaching is actually, you are recreating yourself to be a heart person. Than, I don't know how to call it. I'm just going to use my own words, to be a heart person more than a brain person. Is that the right English? You become a person. You have to have the empathy, because you deal with people, and people need people like that. So to receive it really is the best lesson that you can get.
Yeah, and that's why coaching is also being seen as a member of the helping professions. Even though you get paid for coaching people, but it is regarded as a helping profession. You have to have coaching way of being in you to be able to be very impactful in this profession. But they are, I mean, and then I think coming to the competencies, George, I think you will find that in delivering this is we are guided by those competencies. I don't know whether you liken them to laws, but they are the skill sets that we must have to be able to deliver what is expected of us. And maybe, do you want to lead the way, George, by I've got them here with me on a document, and thanks for that, because we often forget to remind ourselves of what those competencies are. And let's also say that they are the ICF competencies, but we think all other professional bodies have more or less similar competence. And in many cases, they're consulting each other, these bodies. They use each other's contribution to come up with a set of competencies that we all expected to follow. Do you want to take the lead, George?
Well, yeah, I was just going to add on, or suppose comment on what Doc has said around empathy. It falls under that. One of the core competencies of ICF is maintaining presence. They say you must maintain presence as a coach, and within that is empathy, demonstrating curiosity, and staying present. And the good thing with coaching also is that a good coach is comfortable working in a space of not knowing. All too often, people go out and know everything. But your role as a coach is to get maybe use the word juices, the thinking juices of your client to come to the fore so that they create solutions for their issues. So your role is to catalyze that, to get those people to think and be the best. So you don't have to know, but you have to be in a place where you can help them think, change perspectives, etc. So, and coaching comes in very different categories. So I need to emphasize that. There's obviously the heavily the life coaching that's a lot more empathetic. The business coach who wants his client to earn his second million or third million, and you're very much in the corporate space where it's targets, etc. But you're helping the individual to meet those targets by looking at things 360. And so coaching has got that wide breadth but the good coach can actually swim across those different spaces by asking the right questions. It's about questioning, about being curious, about not so much leading, but being the creator of space for the individual to think in a safe space.
Yeah. I just checked here. That's competence number 5, George, that speaks to maintaining presence.
That's right. It's your presence that helps the guy create a good thought process, etc. Because ICF talks of coaching as a thought-provoking conversation that helps somebody to create things. And it's such an important point because all too often people want someone who brings solutions for them on the table. But the best solutions lie inside each one of us, the answers. All we need is someone to help us think outside the box, as you say, and get solutions.
Yeah.
You want us to delve a little bit deeper into that competency number 5, George?
Yeah, sure. I absolutely love it because maybe if I could talk on remaining focused. You see, when someone is coaching and the client is thinking, you can't be talking too much as the coach because you want to create a space for the individual to think. And I'm sure each one of us has had an experience where you have something that's bugging you and you ask somebody to say, this is bugging you. And they allow you time to think through it. And normally you'll come out and say, but I have the answer. Because they've put you in a safe space and allowed you to think.
And so you say that to achieve that level of the ability to be just fully present, it takes practice,
Yes.
and self-discipline, not to offer too much answers, as you have just said.
because the coaching process is not about the coach. It's about the client. It's about the coachee. It's about the person who's been coached. You are there to cause a chemical process in their brain that allows them to find solution. And so you shouldn't be the one talking too much. It's them who should be. So it's their show. So the best coaches, they say, will get their clients to come up with solutions. And the world never gets to hear where that solution came from because it is the client's space.
George, being fully present, is that only relating to you as a coach, or is it also relating to the client? Being fully present, maintaining presence. Or it's just, I know the competencies are for us coaches, but what if you have a client who is never present with you?
Well, that I suppose then the whole role there is to try and get them to
deal with what it is that is making them not be present.
Yes, to find out what is it that distracting them. So you do that by asking questions. What could be done better? Where are the roadblocks, as it were? What does he see as the future? What do they want to get to? And so the more you ask, the more they will be thinking. They can't wander around whilst your questions are coming through. But it's for you as a coach. You can't ask one question and before the guy answers, you've got 5 others questions. That's not being present. Being present means you ask a question, even if it means spending 3-4 minutes in quietness. That's still all right.
I also understood it to say that, Doc, you want to come in?
Yes, I actually just want to open a can of worms, which is probably going to be a discussion that I'm a rural woman, and every other time when I learn something from the books that is probably international best practice, I always relate it to where I come from. And what Utatu George is talking to, and the more I learn to understand how coaches should be, these principles that we're talking to, for me, it reminds me of the wisdom of the head of the villagers. I'm not sure that George where you come from, but I'm sure that Sam is going to relate to this.
I can relate. Me.
Okay. Where you have and everybody else, when in the rural areas, you would have, for instance, a crime committed by some members in the village, and then there is what they call imbizo, and you have the headmen and the chief or whoever is there. And what you find is that the people that are asked questions kwi imbizo will be more the headmen, and the person who's going to make the decision actually really has what you're talking to, Ndate George. You're actually quiet, you're listening, no one is judgmental, and all these questions that are being asked, you have headmen asking intelligent questions so that the decision that is made at the end of the day is going to be embodying the Ubuntu principles, that it is not alienating the perpetrator, but at the same time, is a lesson for everybody else. So I know that these are international standards that we're talking to, but the more I'm into this reading on the coaching, and I kind of like ask myself, these are the African principles, and I'm looking up to Abontate Tsima, who are operating at that global level, that we should be actually really, how do I say, demystifying these principles and not demystifying or relating them to who we are, because sometimes, like now, we have been taught to be like, you have to know everything. We have been taught to be experts. We have been taught to, like you are saying, advising and whatever, and be assertive. This is the schooling system. But the African values are really talking to, the all elderly people that we listen to, including women for that matter. The African woman's perspective is not the fighting or trying to compete with the African man, but is to actually really understand where your power is. You know when and how, but it doesn't really say you are disempowered. You are empowered because you know what to say and when to say it. And you know that your men cannot take decisions about the household without you, which is exactly what happened in the rural areas. The imbizo happens, the decision doesn't happen during that meeting. What happens is that all the men that were at the imbizo, they go back home. Then there's all this discussion within the households that people don't know about. And then the following day, decisions get made by the very same men that were there. But when other people interpret these power dynamics, sometimes it's like it's oppression. And that is why I'm saying I'm opening a can of worms in terms of, okay, other people are talking about decolonizing the narrative. But this is what it is that these principles, as more I read about the ICF and all the principles that Tsima you are talking about, they actually talk to each other. It doesn't matter where it is. They are really around these principles.
Actually, George and Doc, before ICF produced the revised competencies, which have also been used to develop the team coaching competencies. They had a research across the world. They made sure that the teams that they were consulted, they were making input, were representative across the globe. And
absolutely.
And it is quite, actually, there's a video, I will share that with you. I don't know how I shared it with the listeners. They made of how they came about developing and revising the competencies. And it speaks to the point you are raising. But what is very interesting is, it will be interesting to know if the African methodology, the Lekgotla methodology, was taken into account. But when you talk about cultural diversity, I'm sure those things will come through. But I want to just quickly read what they have here on the points they consider to build this maintaining presence core competence, George. They talk about, there are 4 points they are addressing, and then I'll list them, and then we can just take it forward.
Right.
They say that here it's about using one's full range of sensory and perceptual abilities to focus on what is important to the coaching process. That's the first one. And secondly, they say that using a co-coach when agreed to by the team and sponsors, and when doing so will allow the team coach to be more present in the team. This was about the team competence, but it's the same as the competence that you have to have, team coaching competence, as the competence you have to have when you are coaching individuals. So they're also encouraging the ability to pause and reflect. George, you spoke to that. and then moving in and out of dialogue. So because it's very easy to, and I'm trying to respond to what Mvusi is saying. Mvusi is also, Doctor, is also about the context within which you are coaching, I guess, George.
Context is important, but as you said, the research that was done is global. It's communication across the globe, how people communicate, how successful communication happens. So in the current competencies, the issue of culture is actually recognized, that culture is important when you're coaching. But specifically to what the doc has just mentioned, which must stand out, is the issue about managing one's emotions. You were saying the head guy sits there and listens and listens and listens. He's not throwing a tantrum, or he manages his emotions and listens. And this is a hallmark of a good coach. Get your clients very emotional. There are times where they are so emotional, but there are times when but you must, as a coach, be at a place where you exhibit that you're managing your emotions. Because when you do that, you are helping your client to think. And so, yes, Doko, I agree with you. A lot of these principles are just best practice in terms of communication, whatever culture you come from. You must be able to listen to the other person. Talk to what it is that is their pain. That's the ability. So if I'm talking and you're not listening, but you're in your head trying to create a next question, then that isn't good listening. So that's what they say in coaching, that you must be able to actually to be present. Listen to what is he saying. And sometimes it's not what he is saying, it's what he is not saying that you must listen out for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. But the more you talk about it, the more you realize there's a lot of work to be done. But I think ultimately what we want to do is to ensure that we get as many people as can to take advantage of coaching, because once you accept that no man is an island, that you don't have all the answers, that's a starting point for getting a coach to work with you, to help you. Yeah.
So you're saying that having a coach is not a sign of weakness, actually?
No, it is actually a sign of strength. It is the chief allowing other people to ask questions instead of him saying, okay, this is my show, folks, sit back, I will look after everything. He is actually saying, no, you go ahead. Because it is in that you learn. When other people's ideas come out, that's how you learn. So coaching is like that. The very proud person who says, I know everything, is never going to grow. You remember we talked about fixed mindset and growth mindset. A growth mindset is comfortable with I don't know this, but guess what? I can work at this and get to know it. That's a growth mindset.
Great. Do you want us? Can we go to competency number 1? Demonstrating ethical practice.
Yes, as I said to you earlier, for me, that's kind of like the bedrock of the whole thing. Everything comes from there. That you demonstrating and understanding what the ethics are and the standards of coaching. As I come from a legal background, and ethics is big in the legal profession. You actually go through a course on ethics, because it's not your cases that you're handling, it's someone else's issues. And so issues around confidentiality, etc., are so paramount. You can be the most brilliant coach, the most brilliant lawyer in the world. If you cannot keep confidentiality, then you can't be the best professional in that field. What is said between me and my client ends there, done. And so for me, demonstrating ethical practice is such a key thing to any coaching relationship.
Now, let me play devil's advocate, George. I'm the CEO, and I'm having difficulties with the performance of some of my team members. And I decide that I'm going to get George as an executive coach to work with my team or with some individuals in my team. And I want to receive regular progress report from the coach, George. And every now and then I want to sit with George, and George must give me update how the coaching is going. Are my people shaping up? So please, George, enlighten me.
Okay, so if you look at the coaching core competence, I say core competence that says co-creating the relationship. That is number 3. It says establishes and maintains agreements. Now, this is fundamental. If I am going to have a coaching relationship with the dog, as we start, we must be very clear about what it is, what agreement we're entering into. What are we seeking to achieve? What is the goal of this whole thing? Set it out right at the start. So in your case, I will be speaking to Mr. Employer and agreeing exactly what we are going to be doing with the individual. But I must have a relationship with the individual and have a similar agreement that says, I can talk to your boss. But you must remember, one of the key principles says you must cultivate trust and safety. So the employee who the boss wants to do well, must consent to whatever arrangement there is. To the extent that what I discuss with him has the same amount of confidentiality as in the agreement with the company. As long as we agree at the start that these are the points that we will refer to. So it's not every little word that he says to me that I take to the boss. Otherwise, he won't feel safe. So the whole purpose of the exercise is to ensure that he feels safe, he trusts his coach. The main agreement, the employer trusts the coach, that the coach will bring out the best in this individual. Understanding that there will be confidentiality issues along the way, and you must agree on how to deal with them at the start. Don't wade into it down the road. No, at the start. How are we going to deal with confidentiality? And write it down.
So that's the agreement that you and the boss and the client that you are coaching must
everybody understands.
Enter into.
Understand.
Must it be in writing, George, or can it be just our words?
Well, listen, my old head is coming to haunt me. You don't necessarily have to put it in writing because there's obviously trust, etc. But it must be so clear that tomorrow we don't have someone saying, "Oh, but you didn't tell me about X, Y, Z." No. I am going to talk to you about this relation in relation to 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say in the coaching relationship, all we're talking about is his performance around, he's a brewing manager, how is he handling inputs, etc., and his progress to go up for. And somewhere in the conversation, he says, but my child did X, Y, Z. That's not something that is covered by our agreement. And the boss has no right to be demanding to know what the child said. But if you don't make it clear, the boss might actually feel that he's got a right to hear everything that you discussed with this individual. And you've killed the relationship with your actual client. You understand? Because he must feel safe to talk to you, to open up and talk to you. The moment he doesn't feel safe, you don't have a relationship, because he will tell you what he thinks you want to hear.
Will you agree that that is one of the? It's not always the case that the sponsor, the line manager, understand this particular dynamic.
No, they
So
they don't. And that's why you as a coach must tell them that that's the dynamic. It has to be clear at the start, because it becomes messy going forward. And you're likely to ruin your reputation with the employer and with the employee, because both parties are not happy. But if you make it clear at the start, folks, and they say actually establishing and maintaining agreements in any coaching relationship is such a cornerstone. So you will find at the start, what are we looking out to get out of this? What are your expectations? What does success look like for you? All those things you must define.
it's not always emotional things, George. Am I right? It's also the technical, mechanics of it. How often we meet. What happens if you tell me 5 minutes before the event, the session, that you are not coming?
Yes, all those
sometimes
things.
you agree on a certain number of sessions, and when you feel like you don't want to have a session, you just don't confirm.
Yeah. It's you have to put that in the agreement, Sam, to say when should you give notice, etc. Life happens, everyone understands. But if you're going to have a pattern that today actually we set a meeting at 2:00, you don't show up, and you phone me a day later to say, actually, I feel tired. Now that can be a coaching relationship. You've got to put all those things down. And this is why problems eventually happen, because people don't take time to go into those, shall we say, boring details, because they're boring details, right? Because everyone wants to get to the meat of it. But the meat must stand on a foundation, and that foundation must be the clarity of the agreement between the parties. Always ensure that happens, and then move forward. You'll have a happy relationship.
I like the way ICF has formulated it, Doc. It says, that's competence number 3 that George was speaking to. It says establishes, and I can almost put a full stop there. Yeah. And then it says and maintains agreements. So it's one process where you put together the agreement, but is the second step is about making sure that those agreements are adhered to. And then the question is, what if they are not adhered to? What is the remedy?
Just also adding to what Ebra George is talking to, that, and it's interesting because I've started to have clients. By the way, in Dr. George, I've just started the practice. So for me, what you are referring to, the things that are not necessarily in the contract, are part of that establishing the rapport. You have the first session for me is not even talking to the contract, but is really like having a session where, and I remember very well, because that is my coach, and I always relate to how I engage with him. So you have the very first meeting in terms of establishing exactly what do you want to achieve out of this contract. And
very important.
Because you have, as a coachee, you want the coach to take you through the process. Okay, what is it that you want to do? This has got nothing to do with anything writing and whatever. What are your expectations? And in that first meeting, you also just clarify with the client, what coaching is, because a lot of people still confuse the mentorship and the coaching. So people
That's true.
still think that you are going to be mentoring them. Just, for an example, there are people that now that I worked with, that I mentored in the organization I worked for the better part of my life. Now, when they see that I'm in the coaching business, oh, no, they are coming for coaching, but they still have the mentoring. You,
Yes.
yeah. So, and I think that is where then you have to, in that first meeting, have those discussions that are not necessarily going to be in the contract, that deal with the technical part and other things, and for instance, how you communicate, and really also are aligning, clarifying the responsibility of the coachee and the coach. That first meeting for me is very important, because you want to be very clear to the client. This is how I operate. These are my principles. What do you want to get out of this coach? For instance, I can relate to one of the things that it's a must had in the art. You are in a relaxed mode here, but it's very clear. Um, I'm not going to be in this journey for more than a year or whatever. You have to, for how long do you think you want to achieve your goals? And we are going to be setting a contract based on what you want as a coachee. So when you draft the contract, you are drafting a contract based on a conversation that you both agreed upon in that establishing a rapport kind of meeting. So that when something happens, okay, then when your contract deals with some of the technical things and those things that you put together, but you are reminding also the coachee when these things happen about what they have actually agreed upon. I liked one of the things which always for me that has actually been very nice was about the time frames. If Untate, I'm going to use you, sorry, Prasem, because that's the only reference that I have. But if you have a meeting that says I'm here at 8, you have agreed on the time. It's going to be an hour. It's going to be an hour. And he's going to make it a point that he's there on time. You have agreed on where you're going to meet. He's there on time, deals with the issue, and controls the time. And after that, very clear, he's got somewhere to go. So it's not a willy-nilly kind of a meeting that you have. This is what it is. And immediately after that, he's very clear, you are going to be getting a feedback from him about this was the conversation, that this is exactly what came out of the conversation. These are the actions that we agreed upon, and it's done. So I think what I'm also trying to say is when you establish a rapport, you also as a coach, exhibit that professionalism, and you are very you empathize, but you very firm about the principles and the journey. The coachee is going to be really also determined. You will also, I'm sure, get people that will actually deal with that, but then you will have to be frank about, we did not agree on this. We did not agree on this. This is what we have agreed upon. How do we deal with this situation at this point in time? And it becomes this negotiation between the two of you.
Yeah, and this is exactly, I think, the effectiveness of coaching agreements is demonstrate. I mean, it is dependent on how strict you are and how disciplined you are in maintaining the finer details, because there are very little things. I mean, for instance, you build a relationship, and by the way, as coaches are business people, there are other factors that can influence how you actually manage this. It sounds very easy, but it's one of the most difficult things, because you take judgmental call sometimes when certain things happen, and if they happen, and you for the first time, you might say, okay, I will bring it up in the next coaching session. And then in the next coaching session, you might bring it very lightly. It doesn't really arrive home. It happens again. And I think for me, what I found to be helpful is, and sometimes obviously it brings issues of cost, because ideally you should separate administrative issues from the actual coaching. And for that, I always prefer that my team in the office is the one that deals with the logistics and all those things. Because let's take a typical example of a coach that, a client that doesn't pay you in time. And you are the coach, and at the same time, you want to start querying issues of payment in time. That is going to affect the coaching relationship. It is better to have somebody in your office that chases after money. It's also good, also, if your client in her company or his company, there is somebody who deals with those issues as well. And I often say that if it's not yet at the critical stage, don't even tell me when I'm going to a coaching session that the client is not paying in time, because it then contaminates that relationship. So I'm actually saying that establishing the maintenance of the coaching agreements, especially the administrative side of it, it needs to be left to people who are not necessarily involved in the coaching. Yes, the developmental section of the coaching, which is the actual relationship between me and you as a client, in terms of how we conduct ourselves in a coaching session, that is my responsibility. But sometimes coaches is only them and themselves. It's you and yourself. You don't have somebody to do administration for you. Unfortunately, then you have to set up meeting. You have to send the invoice. You have to collect, and you have to go and coach. It's the most difficult thing to do as a coach. It is very emotional.
And this is why clarifying the roles and responsibilities upfront is so important. It's you can never be 100% in any business. I come from a beverage business background. We will deliver so many crates of beer or Coke to a place. I will pay you next week. Something happens in his life, he doesn't. That's normal. You are going to expect clients, a cropper, there's some difficulty that happens, a funeral or something. You have to play it by the end, manage it like a mature. But the key thing is to understand that as you start, create an environment where both parties are clear on the roadmap. And then understand that whatever is said between the parties is confidential, remains confidential, because the confidentiality is the right of the coachee, not the coach. Although there is one exception to that says that there will be, in that agreement, there must be you must bring it to the mind of the coachee to say, if there is something that's, say, an illegal activity, or if the law demands that the coach say, then in those situations, then confidentiality may be breached. But the confidentiality is the client's, not your confidentiality.
And I think it creates safe space for the coachee to know that we will be keeping things confidential. And then they are able, as you said, George, to be honest and truthful in the facts that they are bringing to the table, because one of the important aspects of coach is that it's important to know that you are coaching on real issues, not half-baked issues.
Yeah, it's like telling your doctor that, doctor, I have a headache, and yet the problem is with your toe. So they work on the information you give them. So if you're doing a coaching session, if the person is free, this is why it's important to be able to give them space to think, to give you as much information as possible. And this is why it's important for them to know that what I'm telling this man or this lady stays right here, doesn't go anywhere else. Then they are free to talk.
Great, beautiful. I don't know what, George, you want us to go on with the others, or is it enough for today? Because otherwise I can bring another one. The second one that, because we're seeing that we have dealt with number 3 and 5, maybe we can come with number 2 and 4.
Can I just maybe find out how many people on the line, if they have questions, etc.? Because maybe what we could do is that to stick to 2 today, go and do 2 next week, and so we spread it out. Otherwise, it becomes too much.
They are hearing us. I've also, let me just put in the chat as well. Please submit any input. You're right, George, but also we are also addressing these issues. We are addressing these issues from a coach perspective. We want to hear from
their perspective, absolutely.
From other people's perspective. I mean, there might be coaches also listening that have different perspective.
The one, whilst you're doing that, last week was coaching week, and there were a number of opportunities to learn coaches, and as I said to you, Sebla, I hope on the Kenya, the ICF Kenya chapter had some very interesting ones, and was a talk on ICF on executive leadership, etc. But one thing the ICF, and I don't know about the others, are very keen on, and they have put it in their core competencies, is that every coach must engage in ongoing learning and development as a coach. I find that very, very positive.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to say, oh, now I'm a qualified coach. 10 years later, all you know is what you learned 10 years ago. I don't know your comments on that. I really find that is a very,
Yeah,
very...
I think it is that, and that's why they even give you continuous professional development credits when you attend some of the programs. And then it is that, George, and then also supervision. As a coach, actually, it's mandatory that you do attend supervision. And I don't know whether you will want to say that this platform is more or less similar to supervision. I wouldn't say so, but it's close. It's halfway between supervision and training, because we are learning as we converse, but we are also reflecting as coaches, talking about it together in the presence of. It will be what they call fishbowl. Maybe one of the good days, George, we could also demonstrate coaching online here. Invite somebody to be in our studio, and then we do demonstrate coaching. How is that?
Yeah, that would be good. That's good.
And obviously, the person has to be comfortable with bringing issues to the platform like this.
You don't have to have a long one. You can have a shortish one for people to see how it goes. It's in the executive coaching program that I'm doing. We actually every week do demos on coaching.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I also have a coach. I'm a coach, but I have a coach.
Oh yes, that is another highly recommended practice. That coaches must have coaches. They must be coached so that you experience what your clients go through when you coach them.
Yeah.
I think all of us have got blind spots, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And supervision is actually assisting for us to reflect at a personal level as a coach, at a professional level as a coach, and also at a supportive level. I don't know, I'm just thinking, when you are reflecting, you are able to engage with your supervisors and be vulnerable. Because sometimes, as a coach, people will be looking at you as a coach, but you need somebody that is going to, that will assist you also to improve on your practice, but at the same time, you are able to be vulnerable with.
You have just so nicely defined what supervision is, Doc. Because it's exactly that. We are invited to bring a real cases to the supervision without actually compromising confidentiality. And the purpose of that is, it could be for development, it could be for addressing those blind spots, but also learning together. And sometimes really being helped to resolve some real situation that you are experiencing with your own client. And I like what you have just said. You allow yourself to be vulnerable, because it's not nice to know that you are stuck, in your coaching with your client. But it's good to know that you can actually bring that situation to a supervision where with other coaches under a leadership of a well-experienced senior coach who is trained also on how to run supervision, because it's not a collection of coaches together. There need to be somebody who's much more experienced that is going to help you to resolve whatever it is that is creating blockage in your coaching with your client. And I must be honest, this has been one area that in the earlier years of my coaching I used to shy away from. And the moment I became aware of how helpful it is, it's almost like you're right, Doc. You actually purposefully allow yourself to be vulnerable, because you are going to be told there what you are not doing right. And you have to go back and rectify that and bring it back next time. Or maybe take it to your coach to say, the supervision has revealed to me that I have a development area that I'm not addressing, and I want you to coach me on it. Mm-hmm. You literally stop being a coach and to become a coachee, and be exposed for, and be asked to go and work on it. You get humbled. You humble yourself. And sometimes it might even reveal that you might have to go and take further training.
But that is the essence of growth, sir. Growth implies you are growing in areas that you are not strong. You're building on a foundation, but you are growing all the time. Because if you know everything, then then you've arrived. But as you and I know, whatever the profession you're in, no one ever arrives. It's and you must consciously tell yourself that my mind is open to learn and to grow. Yes, I may not know something today, but I will know it if I work at it. And so as I become stronger in one area, obviously I'm depriving other areas of strength. So I need to work on those as well. So the moment you accept that I am going to continuously grow, there will be moments you will have to be vulnerable. Yeah. Hey, help me. And you become a better person.
Actually, I had a very interesting conversation with a friend yesterday about how, as coaches, we conduct ourselves openly as a result of what we believe we have achieved. And we started talking about this the practice within the ICF and any other body of credentialing coaches and giving them labels. And I found situations where sometimes we can be very egoistic as coaches. You know, if you are in a setting, there are those who will be MCCs, PCCs, and ACTs, and sometimes I get the feeling that we have a tendency of actually grouping ourselves, and I was saying that should be discouraged, because you and I, George, and fellow coaches, last time we declared that we want to contribute towards making coaching very accessible. And these titles that we are given is just a milestone that anyone is able to achieve, but it doesn't necessarily make you exclusive and special. It's just an acknowledgement that you have done so many hours of coaching, you have gone through so much assessment, so you have seen a little bit more, and that's why we can say, George, you are going to be our supervisor, but we are also on the journey to get to where you are. So I especially for a country like South Africa, I feel that the coaches owe it a lot to the country to come to the party to really assist this country with the real issues out there in the society that we are faced with. Even among leadership, I mean, there's certain leadership behaviors that we know that coaching can really address.
Yeah, well, I think my comment to that is that having worked in other professions before, in each of those, I've come across people who become so egoistical. They know everything, and so it is a weakness when someone believes that they're God's greatest gift to mankind. But that happens in any setting, and so that's why I think ICF says they will recognize continuous learning, continuous growth, because the more you continue to learn, the more you seek knowledge, the more you realize that you're actually not special. And so I think that requirement that we continue to learn, continue to seek to be better for the benefit of ourselves and our clients, the better. But you will come across people who think they're God's greatest gift. And it's unfortunate. They may need coaching. So
doesn't this go back to our earlier discussion about the character of the coach?
it's important. Character is so
because people get into coaching for different reasons. I think, I mean, it's like politics. Others, it's a career. Others, they think it's something because you want to be paid. But others, it's like, I want to give back, and also understanding the context of the people that I work with. And this is what my responsibility beyond that I'm getting paid. And yes, training and mentoring, I mean, more training might happen, but if the person's character is, I don't know if training will change the who you are.
Actually, sorry, George. Actually, there is I can't remember the author of the book. I'll find it, where he says it so nicely that long before you actually become a coach, there is a coaching way of being. And he was talking to the personalities. But I also say that should not be used as a barrier of entry into coaching. Even your personalities can be developed, and but they are different people by just who they are. We all can become coaches, but we have a certain style, certain personality that contributes to help or doesn't help us. But that's why we can develop ourselves. And this is also a debate between executive coaching and psychology-oriented type of coaching approach. I'm now going into a very, very sensitive area because we have had this debate a lot at the colleges, and where like there are certain people who believe very strongly that executive coaches, it needs to be psychologically aware, but at the same time, they need to be aware that business has got just certain specifics. They just want people to be coached to achieve certain milestones, and don't bring some therapeutic type of approach to coaching, if I may use that, although there's no such thing. Basically, I've experienced a situation where a CEO said, listen, I want you to coach my people to achieve the results. Don't come and waste time about this softy stuff. You and I, George, will say, let's check in body, mind, and spirit. They say, listen, get to the crux of the matter. Don't waste the time for my people. I'm not here to chit chat. But we all be saying that before you coach executives, you're actually coaching people, and people have emotions and have feelings.
Yes.
So therefore you need both sides. So yes, personality matters a lot, and I think at the entry point, it's very important for people to understand that's a coaching way of being. If you, for instance, are not interested in the development and growth of people, how are you going to be able then to support them on that journey? Is that empathy that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Sam, when you say, "Oh, I don't, the softy stuff." But whoever is going to run your business is first and foremost a human being with all the traits of a human being. And when his life is sorted out in all the other respects, he gives you maximum value. Coaching in I always want to include something about the person. So yes, we're chasing goals, but what is your life like back home? Are you fighting with your wife or husband every day? Then you're never gonna give the business 100% productivity.
Very interesting, George. You are also a life coach, am I right?
Yep, I am.
How do you balance these two? Being executive coach and a life coach at the same time, because there's a distinct views between the two, about the two.
Well, we're chasing goals for executives, right? We're chasing his goals very well, etc. But in those chemistry sessions that you have, the Doc was talking about the meetings before, etc. When you sit and you have a chemistry session with the executive, you want to know where he's coming from, where is his family, how things, etc., etc. Because if his life is upside down at home, he's going through a serious divorce and all that, you can coach as much as you want. Sam. That guy will never give 100% to his business. So it's important to treat them as people. They're human beings with lives and responsibilities outside of the workplace. And in fact, as you know, the thinking is if your executive is going to spend 24 hours at the workplace, then you've got a disaster in the making. Yeah. You must balance, you must have downtime, you must take holidays, that's how he's going to give. Otherwise, he'll burn out. He'll give you excellent results for 5-10 years, but he's going to burn out. No doubt about it.
Great. We have 5 minutes, top of hour. Should we use the last 5 minutes checking out and reflecting on the three competencies that we have addressed and our conversations in general? Just to remind ourselves that we spoke about competency number 1, which is demonstrating ethical practice. Competency number 3, establishing and maintaining agreements. And number 5, went to number 5, maintaining presence. We will come back to the other competencies next week.
Yeah, I thought, Sam, it was pretty useful to go through them as a reminder to ourselves, our obligations to our client, and what governs us. But also as a refresher, these things. If you don't go back and consistently look at them, they will slip. And you want to give the best you can to your clients, and the only way to do that is to continuously up your game. And so, yeah, and when I see people on the line like getting involved, it gives me pleasure to say what we are doing is relevant somewhere, and that somebody's life will be improved as a result of this. Yeah, so that's me.
Thank you.
For me, colleagues, I I think a lot of people are so tired of people who know everything, like Pratot was saying. They, really want to be listened to. It's even worse now after what we have gone through that we didn't anticipate. We were all locked up within our households or on our own. It's time for people to be able to just really voice out how they feel. So, who is the better person to talk to than a coach? Because you don't want an advice, all what you want to talk to about your own feelings, somebody who's not going to judge you. But at the same time, as the economy is recovering, as everything around us is recovering, as the positions that we had, we lost jobs and we didn't have closures, and we want to reclaim ourselves in the society and globally. You just want to have a voice. And I think by this platform, Brasem, of really not only there's not only awareness of the coaching practice that will allow that kind of engagement, but also just even for us as people who are getting into the industry, is actually good one, breathtaking. It's like I get overwhelmed when I'm excited. It's actually the time. The time is now for us as the coaching industry to allow people to bring their voices in the platform, to hear themselves and reclaim themselves for and unleash their potential for a better future. So I'm really appreciative of this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you. From my side, I am really also very grateful, because it's almost like this is the opportunity to refresh, to reflect, and to learn. And coaching is really is taken off, and we are expected as members of these various bodies from various regions of the world to contribute. And I think I just like the culture we are creating of talking about this work, this profession on an ongoing basis. I'm sure George and Doc, after having a conversation like this, and you have lineup of clients in the following days, it must be almost like putting you in a better position to meet the clients.
Yeah, as I say, it's always an opportunity to learn. Let's learn.
Yeah,
Use the opportunity to learn.
Great stuff. Yeah, we'll meet again next week. I might be on the road, but we will be able to using the mobile phones to open the studio, and like we always do, whoever is audible will just take charge and engage with our listeners. And we thank those who managed to tune in. We apologize for the little hiccup we had at the beginning. We had to generate a new link after I mistakenly entered the earlier session. So I will be careful next time not to end.
Learning doesn't end, Sam.
Yeah. There must be a number of people that are very angry with us because they probably tried that first link and they couldn't come. But the podcast will be available, and we will we'll publish it
Thank you
for
very much,
people
Pastor.
to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doc. Appreciate it. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It
you
was
very
nice
much.
connecting with you.
Thank you. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great.